here's where the problem lies: the understanding of that purpose.
How can you find that purpose?
In that whole chemical reaction that happens and the way it kind of grows and manifests, there is internal direction.
Only can see it if you're aware. That's
Yes.
a purpose trigger. So how can we be more aware?
People actually don't know what they act upon. The way in which we can get more closer to our cause, if you will, and then Simon Sinek always talks about this, right? It's a just cause. And they're driven by that one idea. And whatever that is, the best way to kind of tap into that is truly and ultimately knowing which way we are headed, right? And alignment is a big part of that understanding. Here's where many get stuck, because what they're looking at in terms of a problem is how valuable is that problem? What is the price point of that problem? Then I will tackle the problem. So they tackle a problem that has immediate monetary value, is topical or trending, or they can benefit from it very quickly, right? And so they attack that problem. Now that problem is only short term. For example, a LinkedIn expert is only an expert until something else pops up, right? Because when everyone starts flocking to a different platform, and eventually it will come. Or a new, Gary Vee talks about attention, right? Wherever the attention goes. The shift that we need to make there is, and it goes back to this idea of what you just asked, is how do we get close to the cause that we're really trying to fight, is getting in alignment with the problem that we ultimately face ourselves. Because the bigger the problem, the more, if we talk about finances, the bigger the payout. But the smaller the problem, the quicker the payout, but the more work you have to, the more kind of, not work you have to do work on both sides, but it's short-term versus long-term. And so purpose has everything to do with this. Now, here's where the problem lies: the understanding of that purpose and how it is seen today. And right now, as you probably know as well, you do strategy yourself, but we seem to define a single definition purpose. Mm-hmm. One purpose. In our whole existence, we've got one thing now we want to focus on. And to me, it doesn't make sense. And here's why purpose is quite important to that cause. They're trying to get to that cause. The way it's seen right now in terms of how we define it, it seems as if at some point in our life, through our business, through experiences, we feel like, oh, life isn't what I thought it's supposed to be. Now I want to look for a purpose-driven life. You've seen those kind of
brands.
Yeah, you've kind of seen all that taglines. It's all hooks. It's all clickbait stuff, right? To get people in, like, oh, it's purpose-driven, like that. Like we're not anyway. Mm-hmm. We all are. Since the day we were born, right? I mean, but we didn't realize that because we neither had the mental capability, the understanding, or to be able to accept that it's that thing that we are here to do.
I think that's the danger of branding in general. I think we keep on sharing a lot of love and a lot of appreciation that branding is such a good thing. It builds emotional connection. It builds mental availability. It shows differentiation. It quote unquote creates purpose. But if everybody is, so here's the thing, if everybody is doing the same thing and they are calling it the same thing, it means that it's commoditized. So does that mean that purpose is being commoditized? Does that mean that branding is being commoditized? And that is kind of the whole idea that branding is fighting against. To not be a commodity, to be different, to be better in a very distinctive way. So if now every single brand out there must and need and should have one singular purpose through its whole existence, as if it's a human being, but brands are not human beings. Brands are operated by multiple people. So does that mean that every single person that operates that brand needs to have that same purpose? And that's very against the human nature of things. Because if everybody has the same purpose, then we don't need everybody. We just need one person.
Yeah, and I guess this is where the misunderstanding comes. So we kind of get to that point in our life where it might be in business, it might be personally rather than professionally, and then applied professionally. But we come to a point in our life where we feel as if we're not living on purpose, or it seems to be a trend right now, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, what is my purpose? What is the And
yeah,
just to kind of come off what you just said there, I think a lot of what Simon Sinek talks about, you know, the golden circle. We all know the golden circle, right? And they talk about why. Why isn't a purpose. And I think people have misunderstood really what he's saying. Because why is a reason, it's not a purpose. A reason is a choice. Purpose is who you are, what you do without thinking. There is no choice, it is, right? Whereas why is, it's a choice of a reason to do something. And I think people confuse the two, and we need to clarify this a little bit. So if purpose is something that's been with us ever since we were born, I mean, then life has a job to do to get us closer to it. Now, what tends to happen is we go through life and we go through experiences, and it gets us closer and closer to that understanding. The problem in which the way people see purpose and try to get to that cause that you were talking about is they define it in one statement, and that statement often sounds like a checklist. And whoever's listening to this doesn't, you know, I want you to go back and kind of review your own purpose. Does it sound like a checklist? Because it shouldn't. And if it is a checklist, well, then you do it once and you're done.
Yeah.
So we need to change the understanding of purpose. And I want you to think about it.
Are you saying that purpose isn't achievable?
It is achievable, but
it's like
it's not something like we have to work towards. It's something that we are.
So right? It's more of a fuel.
Yeah, well, think about it. If you were born and I told your mom, Amine is born for this very reason. He will have to struggle for the rest of his life. And then through him, the world will change in the way it needs to change. Here's the question. Is your mom willing to accept that? And are you willing to accept that purpose?
I would say she would not.
Yes. It's a very hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Which is why, here's a perspective. We don't know our purpose when we were born for this very reason, because we haven't experienced enough. Our journey and our mental development hasn't been there enough to be able to understand and appreciate that. Now, the purpose that we're talking about, just as a clarity to anyone who's listening, is this isn't about business, this is about personal.
Right.
Because the business purpose will expand from the personal purpose. And that is how alignment is done. Mm-hmm. Now, the way in which we're supposed to be looking at purpose is who we are without thinking. And I've always said this. It's something we act upon without having to think. Now, what does that mean?
That thing that sits in the back of your head that you keep on resisting, but it keeps on showing up to the surface.
No, we don't resist it. Here's the thing. We actually are our purpose. Okay? Let me go back a little bit so we kind of get an understanding of this. We never have to choose to live in purpose, because
Right.
there's a shift in terminology there. We need to really be purposeful. We're not living as a choice to be in purpose. We're actually living in scenarios where we are purposeful, which means we act already. The problem there is people actually don't know what they act upon.
Right.
When we get that clarity, and let me work our way up into, let's say, a business, for example, or personal brand, and ultimately where that cause is that you spoke about at the beginning. So purpose happens. It's a trigger. It's an event. It's a situation. It has to, you can't just say, oh, I live purposely, because we aren't purposeful every single moment of our time. When we go to the shower, we're not purposeful. We're not living in purpose. When we have to go pick up the groceries because your mom told you that we need aubergines, that is not living in purpose. Which doesn't make sense to me as we build this definition and what's commonly known as purpose. We build this definition and then we say, hey, listen, we're purpose driven, or I live up to this purpose. Well, you're not purposeful every single moment of your existence. How does that work? Which means that purpose has to present itself to you. It's an event. It's a trigger. Yes. So it presents itself, it comes to you in any which way, shape or form, experience, circumstance, an event, or any kind of trigger. But here's the thing, in order for you to be purposeful, which is the terminology we really need to be using, you need two things. And I talk about these two things. You need awareness and you need action. Because you can't be purposeful, you can't live in purpose without, first of all, action. And here's the problem, is that where do we act? Well, we're unaware of when it happens. So if you look at our past existence, which is the biggest data source that we have, we always look at it thinking there's something wrong. Why do we not look at it as in, what is it telling us? Why don't we analyze it? Because there's patterns there. We have to jump on the pattern that consistently keeps coming up. This is very much in alignment, and through that analysis is very much in alignment with the cause that we were talking about. What is the cause that
let me take this one layer deeper. So as far as I understand, this purpose is not a decision, or not something you choose to have. It's something that it is, and it is more or less of a trigger, of an event, of a way of being. That reflects on more or less of maybe what you define as meaning to what you do, and to how you live. It's beyond just work. It's beyond just business.
Yes.
It starts, I would say, from the inside out. It's a personal element in, I would say, and let me know if I'm wrong here, but it starts with identity. So it's part of your identity and it shows up to the world.
Yes. It shows up through synchronicity, through occurrences, through opportunity. The thing that the problem we have is we're not aware, like I said. We're not aware of what makes us purposeful. See, the shift in understanding here is we're not trying to live up to one definition. Instead, we're trying to be aware of when the situation arises, I'm called upon. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we act without thinking.
So it becomes almost like your responsibility to act.
Yes, because the opportunity is like, well, I know one person, the universe is saying, I know one person who's really great at this, and that's what they're here to do. That opportunity, you'll be there at the right time. That opportunity arises. It's why, for example, if an old lady fell on the floor and someone's purpose is really to care, or whatever that idea of that purpose is, they would jump to it and help her. Whereas other people will be on the sidelines recording, oh, she got run over by a bus. Does that make sense? Because it's not in their purpose to see that situation as an awareness to say that, hey, listen, you're called upon. Now, when we know, first of all, what makes us purposeful, not what gives us purpose, when we know what makes us purposeful, it's that awareness. And then we have to act upon it because, well, how do you feel a sense of purpose then?
Right.
So you have to act upon it, which means you're aware.
So here's something else. And I think this is very common in different cultures, which is, so now we have a clear understanding or a decent understanding of what purpose is and how it manifests. Now, there are two things that I'm thinking of at the top of my mind, which is one of them is the awareness part. How can we be more aware about our purpose? That's part number one. But part number two is, I feel like there are multiple layers to multiple purposes in different aspects of our identity. So what shapes and what defines and what makes an identity an actual identity? So it's the culture, it's the environment, it's the religion, it's the language, it's the type of brain that you have, left, right, it's your personality or character. All of these create what we call an identity. So if you're born, for example, in a culture in Europe, in a place where Christianity is the religion within that identity, therefore there is a purpose to that religion that you have to stick on, that you have to follow. If you in Middle East, in an Arabic country, there is the Islamic religion that has its own purpose that you have to follow. So does that mean that that's the only one purpose that you can have, or within each of these layers, personality, character, religion, language, all of them have different multiple purposes that connects within a holistic purpose? Like, what do you think?
So again, we're not working our way up to just one specific purpose, just to clarify. But the way in which we look at that is, well, what is the challenge? Purpose isn't something amazingly fancy happiness. Purpose is something that is that when you do something, that feeling you get, like that sense of fulfillment of doing something. Whereas at the moment, it feels more like, yeah, well, we're purpose driven. Yeah, we do things for purpose. It's not that. So to kind of answer your question there is, all that you said is true. Because think about it this way, and I always use this analogy because I think it's really powerful. When you have a baby, when the woman has a baby, where is the schema, the diagram, the ultimate direction to how that fetus is supposed to grow into a baby? Because 9 months later, it comes out and it says, hi, welcome to the world. Where is that direction? How does the fetus know that it needs to grow in a certain way? It has 2 arms, 2 eyes, 2 legs. Where is that detailed blueprint? If you think about that, then really there is ingrained direction in that fetus, in that whole chemical reaction that happens and the way it kind of grows and manifests. There is internal direction, which means we haven't stopped directing ourselves because we're still growing, aren't we? Which means we already have inbuilt direction. The thing that stops us is the fact that we want to say, oh, well, I want to go this way, but your inbuilt direction is not meant to go that way. So what you're saying,
feeling that when you see something,
yes,
like, oh, this is
yes,
so bad.
Yes, which is why what you're saying there about all the religion and all these kind of aspects that make our identity, all of those things have to align. There's some miraculous level of connectivity, inner connectivity that has to happen in order for that to mold you into that. Now, I'm not saying it's the only way you're supposed to be, because then some people might, go off to another country and say, hey, listen, I want to explore something new. That's fine. That's all part of the direction, inbuilt direction. With that in mind, then, is when we say it has to present itself, you can live a life without purpose. We can. it's in the understanding that we're already acting purposefully when the situation arises.
We want to
Now, go ahead. Sorry?
So when the opportunity rises, when the purpose shows up, we decide not to take action because
we're unaware of it.
Right.
We're unaware of what it is that we're supposed to be acting upon, but sometimes we act upon it naturally without thinking.
Unconsciously.
Yeah. Yes. Because that is the synchronicities, the direction, the inbuilt direction, all of these things happen in, it's so orchestrated really well that we are in the right place at the right time to be purposeful in the right way. And so when we have that understanding, here's where we can now ship it out into businesses. When we truly know exactly what makes us purposeful, and I'm using these quote marks, is because I really want people to understand. We don't say we need to change our language. We don't say, well, my purpose is, that's wrong. What we're supposed to say is, I'm purposeful when. And to find what that is, we have to understand, well, what is the challenge that needs to present itself that makes you purposeful?
What are the triggers of awareness?
Yes. When does that present itself and you think, I'm triggered, I'm enabled, we call it enabled. I call it enabled.
So based on your experience, Anks, maybe you have worked with a couple of people who have done this challenge and eventually figure out their awareness system. Like, can you maybe think of an example on how that would look like in like a real life scenario?
Yeah. So, and here's where just to finish off the last bit, when we have that understanding in terms of business, when we have that level of awareness and we have the ability to take action on that awareness, now we can say, I know what I'm here for. Not every day of my existence. Mm-hmm. Because when I go to the bathroom to go to the toilet, I'm not purposeful, right? That situation doesn't arise in that. It could, I don't know, right? Depending on how you define.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
Let's see, whatever. Consciously we're talking, right? Intentionally we're talking. So once you understand those two things, the fact that we have to take action on the awareness that when the challenge presents itself, now we can start developing that and building that into a predictable space. Because instead of waiting for, I don't know, when's purpose going to show itself? In order to concentrate that level of feeling, that fulfillment that we have, we say, okay, I'm going to be a purpose-driven brand or a company. So now we know what challenge comes up, and now we know how to take action on it. We confine that and we compress that into a predictable space called a business. All of a sudden now...
I'm already thinking of a better statement that brands could use. So because they are still going to use statements, no matter what. At least they make better statements.
No, there is a statement. I'm purposeful when I challenge what?
I love that. And it's also like, instead of saying, we do this thing and we call it purpose. So we are like a purpose-driven brand that cares about X.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Another better statement there could be, we take action on X, or we take action on this challenge.
Yes. We are purposeful when we challenge X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Which means, now it goes back to the idea of business when you said, well, does that mean everyone in the business has to adopt the same purpose? Here's the thing. There's only a fair few. We don't make up purpose, right? It almost seems like everyone's got different purpose. No, we're not. We just have different definitions, but all aligned to a similar point. That's why we can come together on being purposeful and attack the same problem in very different ways.
Right.
That's how, when you have
the same problem.
Of course you can. That's why those companies that have a culture of really what truly is purpose-driven, that when everyone knows what is the challenge that we present ourselves to, then those with a different definition can also align, which means why they applied in the first place. Now, it seems counterintuitive to me to kind of say, well, this is what purpose is, what we're going to do. Do you like it? Well, tough luck. I'm going to pay you. And they're going to be like, yeah, sure, great. I get paid at the end of the day, don't I? Because then they walk into the business with a separate person, as a different personality. And they walk out the building, the 4 square walls, and they don't rep the company anymore because they're not purposely inclined in that way.
Yeah.
That is the problem. So to go back to your answer in terms of an example, so that to be purposeful can happen in any shape. So let me give you an example of mine. So I am purposeful when I challenge self-made constraints. That's what makes me purposeful. When does that actually happen? Self-made constraints. And I'm all about, you know it already. I mean, you've known me long enough. You know, the company I build is called Peoplepreneur. It's all in alignment with this idea of the self-made constraint here.
Right. Self-leadership.
Perfect. And it's all in alignment why in which I'm building that in that way. But here's where you can be purposeful. So let me give you my example. I might be sitting at a coffee shop. Now, I'm totally minding my own business, doing whatever on my laptop, building my work. And someone comes up and I've had it many times. I've actually coached a few of the copy staff. But when the opportunity presents itself in a way that's, someone might meet someone and they say, I'm finding it difficult to kind of do this. And they might not necessarily say that outright, but the conversation and the dialogue automatically triggers me, and I call it enables. It enables me because I truly understand the awareness of this person needs my help.
Right.
And the best example of that in terms of synchronicity and self-direction is I had a client who came to me through that level of direction and synchronicity. He joined the queue at a coffee shop. He was going to meet somebody else. In that process, that other somebody else was meeting me. And I met him through him. Through dialogue, I could tell that because I challenge self-made constraints, I could tell through dialogue that I'm here to be purposeful for this person. Eventually, that person became a client. Yes, we went through a whole workshop and a process. But that's just an example of what makes you purposeful. I was just sitting in the coffee shop and it happened. Now, if I want to mold it into predictable spaces, what I told you in terms of business, then now, because Anks Patel has defined the challenge as self-made constraints, now then what does that mean for my business, Peoplepreneur? That means it's an expansion of trying to live up to and fulfill the idea of being purposeful of self-made constraints, which is why one aspect is now being developed in Peoplepreneur through self-leadership, mindset work. That is one aspect of my purpose as a founder of the company. Now, let's say I have 2-3 other businesses.
And here's the limitations of maybe the one side of this, which is now you've developed this big Peoplepreneur, this big company brand, and it's on solving this one challenge. But you, on the other hand, you've grown and you've grown up and you start getting gray hair, just like this one over here. And
also,
and eventually you have new challenges that you want to overcome, new challenges that triggers your purposefulness sentence or your purposefulness environment. Therefore, you as a person feels the urgency of taking action to solve them. That might not necessarily reflect on the company brand because it's still just solving maybe 1 or 2 previous challenges. So a very good example, and this is maybe where a company brand, and this is where the term rebranding comes into place, where we need to realign the brand with the new centers of interest and the alignment of the leader of the brand, because his challenges have changed, his interests have changed over time. That's normal. That's human being development. Just like the analogy that you said, as a baby, you grow up, you find your direction, and you become an actual human being. And as humans, we don't just end up of our growth. We keep on growing until we die. So the end point is death. It's not anything else. So I really think that the end sentence of purpose is you stop breathing. I think that if you're living and acting upon that purpose of yours, and you want to keep doing that over time, the only way that the thing that could stop you is death, because that's where you stop growing. But that's not the topic. So a good example to this and a good story to this is Airbnb. So the founder of Airbnb, I believe his name is Craig Chesky or something, or Brian Chesky. I think Brian Chesky is the name. And I was recently watching his podcast with Jay Shetty, and they were talking about how it's like to run Airbnb, how it's like to live alone, how it's like to build this international community, stuff like that. And eventually Jay Shetty is such a good interviewer that he had him to share stories about his purpose and why he do what he do and how that relates with his company's purpose. And one thing he said, and this resonates back to the example that you shared, which is on the challenges side of things, is what's Airbnb's purpose? Why is it doing what it's doing? And he said, Airbnb, the challenge that it's trying to solve is to cure loneliness. That's the challenge they are fighting against. And how they are acting upon that is by redefining what family is, to the point where they create this strong sense of community that eventually cures this loneliness challenge. And that's Airbnb. But Brian Chesky right now feels this kind of pressure that this is a strong Airbnb brand. Like, it's doing its thing, it's doing well, it's doing amazing, but he has grown to solve even bigger challenges. Like right now, he feels like he has other things that he want to build up on, and he feels the risk that the more he opens up about the challenges, it could reflect back to Airbnb's brand and harm it, because it's not aligned. And that's kind of the limitation of company branding when it's not following the leader personal branding. And that's why I think personal branding, in most cases, it has way more leverage and way more power than the company brand would ever do. And this is also scientifically proven, because in company branding, what do people want? They want to see the people behind the company. They want to see the leaders behind the brand. They want a story and experience with people, not just a logo or just a title. And the only way you can do that is by fully embracing who you are as a person and who you are as a personal leader, as a personal brand, and eventually with acting upon on your purpose and finding the challenges and keep on growing upon that. That's how you build a sustainable and healthy level of branding that is unmatchable. Even if there are 20 other competitors who are solving the same problem, you're solving it your way. You're doing it your way. And that's really powerful.
I think there's two key things that you said in that. First one was the idea that when we're talking about being purposeful, we're talking about the challenge that we are aware now of what needs to happen, the trigger, the event, the circumstance. When you say you grow and you want to solve other challenges and that sort of stuff, I don't think it's a separate part of your existence or your purpose. It's all inclusive of it, because what happens, and here's an understanding that I want to just put out, is what happens on the outside is only an expression. Because when we are aware of the one key thing that makes us purposeful, the challenge in which we are enabled, that can span across many expressions. So, and the second thing, and it ties into this, is what you just said there, the founder of Airbnb. Let's say, for example, the challenge is loneliness. I'm purposeful when I challenge loneliness. And that loneliness is it's so broad that we understand that. It doesn't have to be so, tight-knit definition, because it's yours. Nobody's going to challenge you that it's the wrong purpose. Right. There is no brand strategist out there that can tell you don't have the right purpose. They will tell you through a lens that's defined by material wealth that if you do this, it will make you more attractable, which is the incorrect method, not only for the person, because now the person is inclined in that way, but it's only just one aspect of it. So if the founder of that Airbnb is challenging loneliness. Now, loneliness could be in the mind, it could be homelessness, it could be any kind of form. So once he's now built Airbnb, he might tap into loneliness because that's still what makes him purposeful, but in a different category of loneliness. Which now, if he opens up 5 businesses, there's alignment in those businesses. There's a reason why he buys those businesses, because they all point to the same cause, which is the cause that you were talking about at the beginning. How do we get aligned to that cause? Everything that he does now, Airbnb and whatever he's thinking about, if it's not in alignment with that one central point, that's when we start getting flustered. That's when we start losing interest and we sell it, or, this is what it means to truly be in alignment and live purposefully.
Yeah, and Brian, just if you're seeing this video, by all means, I would love to interview you on one of these calls.
Yeah, definitely.
Such a cool person. But so we went full circle at the beginning of, we want to know how to get and find our cause. And that was like the top of the pyramid. That was where we want to be, we want to go, we want to be there. We want to find this cause that fuels us, that drives us, that makes us happy and fulfilled in our work. And that's the question a lot of creative people ask. How can I be more fulfilled? How can I do something that matters? How can I be happy? How can I impact other people's life? And all of these connects to a cause. Or else if you're living a life without a cause, you eventually get depressed. But anyways, we did like a full circle of like, how can we get to this cause is by finding the thing that links between the cause and yourself, which is a purpose. There's like a pyramid and there's like a link between the two. And how can you find that purpose? First of all, purpose is not something found. It's not the decision to be made. It's an action to take up on. It's a being. It's an intentional way of realizing that this is an opportunity that speaks to me as a very unique human being, and I need to seize it. I need to take it. How can we take that opportunity and act upon our purpose? Is by pretty much 2 things. Having the awareness and actually taking the action. It's not just enough to say, I'm going to take the action, but actually taking it when you see it. But you only can see it if you're aware. That's a purpose trigger. So how can we be more aware? Is by looking at the direction, looking at a predictable environment, looking at the signals. Can you speak a little bit more about that, Anks? How can we like detect those awareness signals in a very short, brief way?
Well, when you've looked at the biggest data source that I talk about, when you've looked at the patterns and the consistent themes that consistently show up in your life, and when you synthesize those themes that show up and the signals, you come to some form of pure gold there at the bottom, right? Once we've kind of synthesized everything, and then we know that is what we're looking out for. There's an element there that is down to the individual. I can't tell you that. You can't. Nobody can tell you that. We just know, and because we're enabled once we've defined it. So, for example, if I say mine is self-made constraints, that's when I'm the most purposeful, because I challenge that. When I see someone struggling mentally, they can't do something, they're unable to do something, they feel they can't. Anks Patel is triggered. I don't even stop to think how much money it's going to make. That's a different hat.
That's a good signal.
That is the signal you need to look out for. What do I do unconsciously, and I just do it? There you go. And I just do it because it's right for me. It doesn't matter if I've been paid £10,000 and that is some of the signal. But an easy way to filter through that is really looking back and kind of analyzing and picking out.
You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. Steve Jobs. And I think that's a beautiful summary there. It's okay, you want to bring that awareness on your purpose in order to take action. So what's the link between action and awareness? It's that gut feeling, a signal, an unconscious signal where it almost orders you to take action in a single bit of time where you don't even think about how much money, how much this, how much that. You just take action. That's a good signal that that's something that is pushing you towards your purposeful environment. And another signal or another way to be aware is the challenges that you're trying to solve, or the challenge that triggers you in this life. And the only way to see which challenges are meaningful is just, as we said, to look backwards, to connect the dots backwards and see what were maybe one of the meaningful challenges that you can still remember as of this day, that it still fuels you, that you still think those are meaningful in your life. And yes, that's another clue. And the final one, I think, it's around your identity, that there is no just one purpose. There are multiple layers to it. And depending on where you are and who you are and stuff like that, there is your personality, your religion, your character, your DNA, your brain, your environment, your language, your words, and all of those. There's no way anyone else could replicate them. Even if both of you are trying to solve the same problem, there is no way in the world that both of you can solve it in the same way. So if you keep that in mind, and you always think in yourself that it's better to be different than it is to be better, and leaning into that and asking the right questions, I think that's also a big key element there. Because in branding, we don't ask the good questions. We always default into the statements, the well-known influencer, like the 3 golden circles, why my purpose-driven brand is. No, ask the right question. What does this even mean? Why am I thinking in this way? Challenge your own thinking, and eventually you're going to live in such a purposeful life that you would be in a whole different scenario, where maybe right now you're like, why am I so miserable? Why am I not happy? Why am I not fulfilled with my life and career? Imagine the other side, where you're happy and everything works just fine, and you're living fully fulfilled with everything that you do. And you almost think that this is a miracle, that I don't even deserve this. Why am I so blessed? Why am I so... And that's where... I think that's where, when you are in that situation, when you are in that environment, I think that's where you're most grateful enough to actually act upon your purpose and to actually build an impact in the world. Because when you're fulfilled and your needs are covered and you're happy and you know what you need to act up on, it's almost a moral duty or a moral obligation to make a difference, to make an impact, to do the right thing. So I think that's a beautiful summary to this. So before we end this, because you might be seeing this on YouTube or you might be seeing this on social media, wherever you're seeing this, here's the deal. We're not going to sell you anything. Sure, we all run businesses, we all need to make money, but this is not the purpose of this call. Earlier, I was talking to Anks, and he told me, listen, if we're only going to do this video just for the sake of selling a workshop, let's not do it. If we're going to do this for the sake of having a meaningful, impactful conversation that could help other people, then let's hit the recording. So we did, and it went almost more than an hour. So if you got value from this, we have one simple ask. What is one question or two that you think we didn't cover in this video? Maybe a topic that is burning in your mind right now when it comes to personal branding, identity, purpose. Let us know, so that we're going to do you a favor and we're going to make another video to just talk about that. So any last thoughts, Anks, or should we just get out of here?
Last thoughts, powerful. We have covered a lot. Yeah, I still don't think we've covered enough. And I guess I want to leave that open to interpretation, because we really want to channel it through conversation, through maybe another video, through, like Amine said, through a question. Because that in context, everything makes more sense. So, no final words. I hope you found value from this. Definitely like, share, all the usual stuff. You know what to do. You know what to do.
All right, people, stay artful, stay above average, and we will see you in traffic.